Good morning, I'm Rolan Martin. Next on News 1 Now, the cousin of Emmett Till, who witnessed his murderers rip him from his bed in the middle of the night, has died. We will talk with family members about Simeon Wright and what he has had to live with the last 62 years. Conservative blogs lying, no shock, trying to smear Black Lives Matter when it comes to Hurricane Harvey. Well, guess what? Black Lives Matter, they are out there in the force providing relief to people affected by Hurricane Harvey. We'll talk with one of the leaders right here on News 1 Now. North Korea launches yet another, and of course, another test when it comes to a nuclear test. How should the United States respond? We'll talk with U.S. retired General John Morgan, who commanded troops on the Korean Peninsula. Also, President Donald Trump is reportedly set to end the program known as DACA, which defers deportation for immigrants if they were brought to the United States illegally as children. We'll talk with one individual about what that means for black undocumented workers right here on News 1 Now. Also, in Cleveland Police Union, they say they're not going to hold the U.S. flag when the Cleveland Browns open their new season due to several players kneeling to the national anthem. Really? Cleveland, one of 5 police departments in the last 2 decades under a federal consent decree twice. That same department. Yeah, we're going to talk about them. Plus, big time upset over the weekend. No, not my Aggies. Blowing it over UCLA. The Howard University making history. We'll talk with their head coach right here. It's time to bring the funk. News 1 Now on TV1.
Went to bed that night, it's just like any other night. But then, within an hour, couple hours, our world was turned upside down. It was never the same again.
Folks, that was Simeon Wright, the cousin of Emmett Till, who was with the 14-year-old when he was kidnapped and later murdered. Simeon Wright has died at the age of 74. He died yesterday. Wright's wife, Annie, says he died after suffering from complications from a form of bone cancer at his home just outside of Chicago yesterday morning. Wright was with Till in August of 1955 in Money, Mississippi, when the 14-year-old allegedly whistled at Carolyn Bryant, a white woman. Bryant's husband, Roy, and his half-brother, J.W. Milam, went to Wright's home and kidnapped Till and later murdered him. In an interview in 2011, Wright talked about that horrific night.
They marched around to my bedroom, and I heard the noise, the loud talking, and I woke up and saw these 2 white men standing at the foot of my bed. One had a gun, flashlight. He made Emmett get up and dress and march him out to the truck. A lady voice responded when they asked, "Is this the right one?" A lady responded, "He is." And they drove off, and we never saw Emmett alive again.
Joining us now from Chicago is Erica Gorton Taylor, Simeon Wright's cousin and executive director of the Mamie Till Mobley Memorial Foundation. Erica, first of all, certainly sorry for your loss. 62 years has passed, and it is something that Simeon had to live with every single day.
Yes, I'm sorry to hear his voice still that kind of bothered me. I wasn't expecting that. Yes. Oh, let me get it together.
He, of course, I met him several times when I lived in Chicago, running the Chicago Defender, and he was one not afraid to remind America of what took place to Emmett Till when he was lynched and murdered. And of course, so many folks recall the horrific images of him, of his body that was in that casket because his mother said, "No, let the world see what they did to my baby."
Yes, he really started to speak out more in the 2000s, like after about 2001. He really became vocal. And his passion was he wanted to tell his story, And I think he was really respectful of Emmett's mother. I think both he and Wheeler were. And when Mamie died, they really became more vocal and spoke out. And Simeon, he wanted people to know his story. And that's why he wrote Simeon's story. He wrote a book called Simeon's Story. So his story is always going to live on, even though he's gone through his words. And he wanted people to know how what happened to Emmett Till impacted his family, the Wright family. He wanted the right story out there, and he also wanted to have an impact on young children and young boys. He always wanted them to know that they could grow up. He really wanted to see them have futures because he saw how Emmett's life was taken so young. And he would always tell them he wanted them to become doctors and lawyers and engineers. And so he loved to speak to the young people, especially young men, to motivate them and encourage them on growing up and becoming something, something in their careers. And so he just really spoke out, and he fought until his last breath to get justice for not just Emmett, but for his family and for his father Mose Wright and how what happened to Emmett impacted his family as a whole.
Well, Erica, we certainly appreciate you joining us. You sent me an email yesterday letting me know about his passing, and we certainly thank you, and we thank Simeon for, of course, being willing to talk about this particular issue. Even though it was painful for him and so many others, he certainly has kept it on the minds of America, and so certainly Simeon Wright, dead at the age of 74. Erica, thanks a lot. Well, appreciate it. Thanks a lot. Folks, now let's go to what's happening in Houston, the aftermath of Hurricane Harvey. Many areas are still underwater and thousands of people are without a home. Plus, some mandatory evacuations remain in place. That's because water is still rising since overflowing reservoirs are only partially drained at the moment. In Harris County alone, there are 29 storm-related deaths. FEMA has approved actually a total of about 70 deaths that have taken place. $141 million in assistance has been provided by FEMA. $50 million of that is going to housing assistance, but the governor is saying not enough. Congress is right now considering $8 billion. Well, they'll consider when they come back that Trump is going to send to the Capitol Hill, but he says the recovery could be $190 billion. That is more than Hurricane Katrina and Superstorm Sandy. Now, lawmakers again will convene in D.C. to consider the $8 billion relief package to help FEMA and other agencies. Now, folks, on the ground, we have seen countless photos of churches stepping up to help. These are pictures from the Word Church on the north side of the north side there, volunteers at a local center. And also, while social media has been an important tool to spread the word about helping others, some are also busy spreading lies. BuzzFeed News busted two conservative blogs, one called Mr. Conservative and the other called Conservative Post, for running a fake story accusing Black Lives Matter activists in Houston of blocking the roadways of people trying to deliver supplies. It turns out that photo is 2 years old and happened in Boston during the winter. Really, folks? Really? And so what we have seen is a number of people offering assistance when it comes to Hurricane Harvey. In a moment, we'll tell you about a couple of celebrities who have made $1 million donations. But right now, I want to go to Houston and talk with Ashton Woods, the founder and organizer of Black Lives Matter Houston. Ashton, what is your organization doing to help those in need?
Hello, Roland. First of all, we have been preparing for this the week in advance, and the day that I could get out of the apartment and my other 6 fellow organizers could start moving around, we started raising money. We started buying supplies and just bringing them directly to people, to churches, to the shelters that range from food to toiletries. And actually, we've gotten to the point where we're helping people just remove sheetrock from their house. So it's been all of the above at this point that we've been doing.
And when you talk about that, of course, a lot of people, you have your major organizations, lots of giving to the Red Cross, to the Mayor's Fund as well, but there are many people who are giving directly to organizations because you're helping those in a much more localized way.
That's correct. Here's the thing. I'm a survivor of Katrina. Like many thousands of people. I evacuated New Orleans, and I made a promise that if I stayed in Houston and something like that happened here, with the knowledge of how hurricanes work, that I would never let happen what I saw happen in New Orleans to my people. And then the other thing is, you know, a lot of people like to say, well, where is Black Lives Matter? And all they talk about is this. And the thing is when we say Black Lives Matter, we're not saying that everybody else does not matter. We're just saying stop killing us and stop being systemically racist. It does not stop us from helping people in general. Anybody who needed our help and needs our help here in Houston and the surrounding areas will get our help.
How can folks reach out to you if they want to provide supplies or whatever? And what do you need from people? What do you need?
So right now the mail's not back up running, and a lot of people have been saying, "Well, what do you want on your wish list? What do you?" To be honest with you, the thing that we need is an infusion of people to start coming and bringing in donations if they can drive into the city and the surrounding areas if they're close enough to Texas. And for example, Lee Merritt out of Dallas came with several trucks of supplies and shared them and coordinated with us, and we got them to other activist groups. It was a community thing. And the other thing that we had to do, unfortunately for me, is I had to use my personal PayPal account because we're not a 501c3 and we're a grassroots organization. We work on the ground with the community. And in that time when I asked for donations, people just donated, and I was able to obviously keep receipts, but use that money to get the help that's needed. The PayPal that I'm using is tied to my email address, ashtonpwoods@gmail.com, and we've been using social media to mobilize on Facebook and on Twitter.
All right, then. We surely appreciate it. Thank you so very much. Also want to let folks know about a couple of big donations, one coming from James Harden, of course, who signed a mega contract with the Houston Rockets. He donated $1 million. I believe we have some sound of Harden talking about his donation.
I wanted to say thank you to J.J. Watt, what he's doing for the city. That's not definitely unnoticed. Thank you to the mayor for helping me. I just want to donate and give back to the community as much as I can. And so I'm going to donate $1 million to the city and to areas that need it and to people that need it to make the city stronger.
Also, Tyler Perry donating $1 million, including $250,000 to Lakewood Church, which has been under intense criticism for not opening their church doors earlier to folks who needed shelter. Here's what he posted on Facebook.
I know that there's been some controversy about Joel Osteen and him not opening the doors of the church. Let me tell you something. Joel and Victoria are amazing people. There's no way that they would lock people out of the church or not let people in for a shelter. There were some safety concerns. I spoke to him on the phone, and it all made perfect sense to me.
Also, of course, Tom Jones, BlakAmericaWeb.com is offering their relief fund. Again, they're helping people directly. So if you want to assist, go to BlakAmericaWeb.com to do so. I want to bring in our panel right now. Joining me here in studio, A. Scott Bolden, legal analyst, and of course, chairman of the National Bar Association Political Action Committee, former head of the D.C. Democratic Party, Dr. Avis Jones-DeWeaver, leadership strategist and author of How Exceptional Black Women Lead, and George Farrell, he is, of course, founder of BlakPac. So, folks, we're now in a mode where people need help. And to Ashton's point is a perfect example, folks who don't have 501c3s. And so this is where, I believe you have to work through other organizations because, again, if you're raising those funds, people also have to keep in mind there are tax implications, Scott, when you're accepting money from people for relief efforts as well.
Absolutely, and Black Lives Matter may not be a 501c3, but even as a grassroots organization, those giving to them, I would urge them to apply to see through their accountants and what have you, whether they can get a tax break. But the real issue here is that this is a disaster on the ground, and getting money and supplies to people on the ground is important. You do it through organizations, but it's got to be through credible organizations. These millions that are being given, are they getting on the ground in Houston or are they not? That's the real key.
And Avis, look, I mean, the Red Cross has been criticized left and right because of what they've done with funds from different places. This is where I believe, frankly, you bypass the Red Cross and you give to local entities. You have a lot of churches down there that are, Windsor Village United Methodist Church, the Church Without Walls, Brook Hollow Baptist Church, and others, where they have folks who have done this, who are helping folks directly.
Absolutely. Exactly. I mean, that makes nothing but sense to me. Lots of churches pitched in, didn't wait for the city to ask them. Mosques pitched in, didn't wait for anybody to ask them. So those organizations who have been there for years, implanted in the community, and who did not hesitate to ask, not to ask, but to actually get into action when there was need, those are institutions that know where the help is needed, and that's where funding needs to be specifically targeted.
Now, we're not acting as an organization, but our members from BlakPac, Albert Guillory in Louisiana, is collecting school supplies. He's a former state senator. So we have members, Mike Hill, Mike Lee in Austin is also helping out in a small town south of Houston. So we've asked our independent members to go into those communities and help out, and they're reporting back to me and letting us know what they're doing.
All right, then. Well, again, we'll be giving you more information throughout the week of specific organizations where you can give and also what the needs are. And so we'll have that over the next several days right here on News 1 Now, TV 1. Coming up next, let's talk about North Korea. They have launched a nuclear test that, of course, is leading to response from many world leaders. What should the United States and its allies do? We'll talk with a retired 3-star U.S. general about that next. News 1 Now, TV 1.